Recently I made a video about Dying Light, and said if it hit 3,333 likes, I would make one about Dying Light 2. And you guys smashed that like a Catholic priest does to little kids. So today I'm going to be doing the Dying Light 2 Platinum Trophy, which is somehow amazingly more worse and way more retarded. The game has 58 trophies in it, excluding the DLC, and there is many objectives within which will want to make you pull your hair out. Another fun part of this game is the developer's tech land. These idiots love to add stuff and change things within the game's post-launch. Sure, you can say it adds more content and is fun, but you could also say it ruins the game's trophies, and in some instances, literally makes things impossible to do. Hence the invisible floor they added into the game. It seriously can't be any more blatantly obvious than this right here. Stage 1 of the Platinum Trophy is to do the story like always. Also, as I will find out later on, you have to get all the collectibles early on in the story, because if you don't, you will miss quite a few and have to play the New Game Plus like I did in order to get it. The game begins with you as the main character whose name is Aiden, but I could have sworn this voice actor sounds identical to the one from the last game, and I was so damn confused at first. Nonetheless, you see an old friend named Spike who was the quartermaster from the original Dying Light. He basically takes you on a little tutorial for any new players, and you get a trophy after crafting medicine for the first time. You and Spike find some rich, bougie-ass house filled with a bunch of people who had a giant party, and then ended the party off by joining Juice WRLD so they can avoid the zombie apocalypse. Also, can we please talk about how poor the lighting is in this game on the PS5? Like, for the love of God, I was either blinded by the sun at all times, or I couldn't see if the Black Panther was sitting in front of me or not. Truly a groundbreaking addition to the Dying Light franchise. Aiden, who is the main character, is after his long-lost sister Mia, and that is quite literally the plot for the entire game. No world saving or anything this time, just a little Alabama boy and his lover. He needs to find an informant in the city's tunnel or something, which is your first mission. After finding him, your boy has a seizure, and we already begin the first turning process, which will happen for the next 60 hours of gameplay. God damn, I love immersion. You wake up and have to save the informant so he can do his job and inform you. The main villain of the game, Waltz, shows up and you get shoved into a vent like it's Among Us. Since Aiden is a horny little boy, he watches as the informant gets abused and waits way too long, because then he is spotted. You have to run away from impeding doom and life's problems, but once you temporarily escape them, you get a trophy. And then the game can finally begin. Just kidding, Aiden is still tweaking dick and gets hung up by a bunch of crazed white moms, and they try to hang you. Hakan, who is another big character in this game, saves you basically instantly because the game really needs more playtime and it's going to be worth $60. You also get a trophy for such a close call with happiness. After being nurtured back to health by a bunch of dime pieces, you and Hakan need to go find a GRE marker for yourself, since that is like how they regulate whether people are zombies or not in this game. In fact, the thing doesn't really do anything besides tell you if you're about to turn. So I don't really see the point in it, but it takes up like the first hour of gameplay, and then you are allowed to sort of go off on your own journey however you'd like. I got a trophy for entering the bazaar, which is a major safe place in the game. It has lots of collectibles, which I missed, and had to go back into New Game Plus for after the story. You have to activate your first windmill, which is another place that acts like a safe zone, but it supposedly helps the survivors or PK factions also. Aiden needs to go to the other city in this game, which is called Central Loop, and you can only do that by going through the metro station situated beneath a PK base. So, like any good little boy, we try to sneak through without being spotted and brutally torn apart to death. Eventually, everything goes to hell like all things, and we have to fight our way out of said hell. You actually do the objective, but then get captured by some PK people who are just strolling around, and they just walk over to you. And then you get questioned as to why you were trying to sneak into your sister's pants. I didn't know what to do, so I skipped through all the dialogue and got a trophy. This part of the game is, in my opinion, the most boring out of it all, which sucks since it was literally right in the beginning. Basically, all you do is a ton of errands and story setup for the survivors, which involve a lot of really dumb-ass quests that I wish you didn't have to sit through. This also swayed my vote in giving the PK faction every single territory for this one trophy, since I had nothing against them. Eventually, you have to take over a renegade camp. These can actually be quite hard, especially since you don't have the strength quite yet to do takedowns completely silently, and stealth is the best way to go. But once you take down the last enemy, which is kind of a boss fight, and get the first territory, you get a trophy. There's a fun main quest where these two guys are about to just blow up an entire building for the sake of it, and if they do, basically everyone is just screwed out of all the essentials, like water, electricity, and Latinas. Anyways, I went through and cockblocked them, and once they had gotten blue-balled, we had a huge fight. Shocker, I won. And we get to assign our first territory to the PKs or survivors. A trophy much later in this game requires you to assign every single one of these to one side, so I decided to go with the PKs, as I've said before, and because they're more well-funded, it can probably help me out. After that, I modded a weapon for the first time for a trophy also. It was nighttime and I was being chased to death by a volatile. Now, I can't really tell if nighttime is harder or easier in this game versus the last one, but nonetheless, I made sure to use the UV light from a safe place to farm a volatile kill. for what I thought would give me a trophy, and it did. Me and Hakon had a heart-to-heart in his gay pride shack, and I felt a little afraid. But thankfully, out of nowhere, an arrow comes flying in straight out of Minecraft and takes him down. This reminded me so much of November 22nd, 1963. Anyways, we find out Hakon was actually a bad dude and was working with Waltz, who was the game's main villain. So I decided to leave his ass there to die and got a trophy. Much later on, we end up in a tunnel trying to escape and get to the city. But we get confronted by Waltz midway, and he turns on the roids and just kills everyone. Seriously, how much Tren is being used these days? Shameless. Aiden also has a full-on psychiatric episode, which is just common nowadays in this culture. We end up chasing Waltz down to a car factory where he is going to use the GRE key to do something very sussy. I don't think we made it in time, but we tackled him anyway just for fun. He was about to kill us, but then he had a realization moment and gets shot in the ass with another arrow. I guess the developers at Techland really loved that little animation since they used it twice. This so-called assassin is actually named Lawan, and she is essentially our guide for the rest of the game, like Hakon was in the beginning, before he got brutalized by her, most likely. The electrical station is a new building you can activate in the city. I did my first one and got a trophy for it. A little bit later on, the fisheye, which is like the bazaar but in the city, begins to get attacked by renegades, and we have a super annoying timed mission where you have to kill them all and then turn off these bombs before they actually blow up everything. It's honestly a giant mess until the very end when the PKs show up and we get introduced to Jack Matt, who I could have sworn had an almost identical voice actor to Arthur from Call of Duty Vanguard.
Stop the cap.
Anyways, he gives us a trophy, which is cool. I also just ended up dying in the middle of a street at one point and got a trophy for being all social with my dead relatives. We end up doing a lot of story mumble jumble for quite a few hours, and as my pussy began to dry, I started to cry since it had been so long without a succulent trophy added to my collection. But finally, after watching the entire squad I was with get blown to bits like it's Call of Duty Warzone in 2020 all over again, I climbed a radio tower and turned it on for a trophy. The radio towers are actually super clutch in this game since they show basically everything you want to find that you couldn't at first. Jack Matt is a sick little boy, and I don't think we actually ever find out what he's sick from, but then again, my memory is really bad and I'm autistic. But even after all of that, he gave us a trophy for being cool. And I also got one for traversing the super toxic chemicals that got queefed all over the ground in front of this observatory. At the observatory, we have a boss fight with Waltz since we finally found out more about Aiden's sister, and Waltz can't be having any of that. It's actually a somewhat hard fight, but I did it after a while and then got a cutscene where Aiden loses his mind once more. Except this time he actually took out the poor girl that brought us here. What a Chad, honestly. And finally, we have reached the end of the main story and made it to the secret X13 base, getting a trophy also. The X13 base is filled with tons upon tons of supplies everywhere, and it was all for the GRE workers to have and last out the zombie apocalypse whilst everyone else dies. But those idiots forgot to book their flights and didn't make it in time. You know who did make it, however? Hakon. Yes, the son of a bitch returns from the dead and we have an all-out brawl with him. However, it's not really fair since Aiden just turns on his zombie powers and beats the balls out of everything he sees. Hakon is yet again injured, and him and Lawan have a heart-to-heart since they have been inside of each other. We catch up to Waltz and finally see Mia for the first time, confirming Aiden isn't just a goddamn schizophrenic after all. But Mia doesn't look too good, and she's bald like Will Smith's husband, and we got a trophy. This is the final fight in the game, and it's a giant boss fight with Waltz. It lasts for like 30 minutes, and even with my boosted weapons I got from some fine fans of mine, I still died numerous times since this guy is crazy good. And it also didn't help that I hadn't been able to use any inhibitors throughout the entire game, which basically made me have the base health still. After dying numerous times, we finally get a cutscene and some random ass kid joined my lobby at the very end, low-key kind of ruining my immersion, but it's alright. Both Waltz and Aiden have these zombie episodes, and it's a super weird ending to the fight, but it is an ending after all. Waltz had also set up a ton of bombs and missiles to kill everyone, and Lawan was sent after them to destroy it while I was fighting Waltz. I get posed with an option to save her or let her die, and since I'm not a simp, I let that hoe die. But this kid in my lobby had something to say, and I swear to God it was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. After all of the ass we just got dragged through this entire game, Mia still died. Hey, we got a trophy for the end of the main story. Boy, oh boy, is that not even close to the end of the game, and Lord have mercy, I wish it was. The first thing I chased after post-story was all the inhibitors so I could finally level myself up. The game requires you to fully level both health and stamina with inhibitors, but there actually isn't enough of them available in the game to do both. So if you don't want to go into New Game Plus, you have to save them all up and then use a backup save to get the trophies on one game file. I defeated my first GRE anomaly for a trophy, and then at some point I was also getting abused by zombies in a level 4 chase and escaped it by hiding and praying to the Lord above. Within all these GRE quarantine place thingies, there's tons of zombies, and you can't really stealth it without being seen, so I eventually just gave up with stealth since after playing this game for 7 hours, it really makes you dead inside. And I just went swinging for the fences, killing everything I saw in sight, which I guess was good because it gave me a trophy. I fell a lot during this game since I suck at it, but at least they award a trophy for being bad. I then got 50 stealth kills while in the GRE quarantine zones, and even completed all of them after hours upon hours of grinding, just like your girl did to me last night. And I finally had enough inhibitors to cheese these dumbass trophies from the even dumber ass developers, giving me both the health and stamina trophies in Dying Light 2. You know, all good things come in pairs, like shoes, booze, and boobs, and even trophies since I went and activated my first metro station and used its fast travel for 2 more trophies. I then defeated all the GRE anomalies, which are these really goofy boss fights in the game, and finally got 50 spear kills total, which I've been going after the entire game, since you can only find spears scattered around on the floor randomly. I liberated all the renegade bases, and turned on all the power stations, and also gave them all to the PKs for a double trophy pop I've been after this entire game. Shortly after, I activated all the metro stations and even all the water towers. Man, I really feel like a little bitch doing all this myself. Like, why couldn't any other NPC out there do it? But I got a load of trophies, so I can't complain. Hours later, I discovered you actually got a crossbow, and it's actually pretty good. So I got 2 trophies for ranged weapon related things. Off camera, at any point when I wasn't avidly playing the game, I was using the rubber band method for the ultra marathon trophy, and I got that at some point while I wasn't at my house. I then did this super buggy side quest with this weird dating thing where you have to meet all of Aiden's love interests. I don't even know what the hell that was, but it gave me the trophy for it like 3 minutes after I did it, which was super weird and broken. Days of playtime later, I finally got all the military airdrops in this gay game. And it is that time again. Collectibles time. Dying Light 2 has at the same time the easiest collectibles and also the most retarded ones I've ever seen in a video game. Aside from like 5 or 6 collectibles in this game, they are all easily attainable at any time. But there is a few where if you don't activate or do a side quest before the main story is over, you simply just cannot get them, and it's extremely autistic. Nonetheless, huge shout out to this fella on my friends list because without him I wouldn't have been able to get all the tapes or mementos. While online, I also did the 100 kills with 2 people trophy, and I gotta give it to the developers of Dying Light 2. I hate you, but thanks for not making this game have ridiculous online trophies this time. Anyways, I farmed the 1,000,000 old world money trophy after 30 minutes of selling and rebuying my equipment. I did the tanning salon trophy, which is actually kind of stupid since all you have to do is weaken an enemy with a UV light and then kill it with a weapon. However, the trophy makes it seem like you're supposed to use the UV light to actually kill the enemy itself. I did all the Night Runner trials, which was actually agony since a few of them I just could not do and almost lost another controller to the Shadow Realm. Then I got the Modder trophy, which is attained by using 50 mods on weapons. If you want to cheese this, you can just spam weapon charms, which only cost 1 scrap, and it's super fast and cheap. Another trophy which is gotten by using this ability 50 times made me want to die since I had no counter on how many I had done, but I got it after years. I then wall ran like it's Titanfall 2 all over again for another combat trophy, and perfectly blocked 10 times in a row without taking damage, which got my balls shaking. I then found all the graffiti for the last collectible and got both my skills to max level, and I didn't catch the 50 encounters on camera trophy because I was trying to get that off camera since I had absolutely no clue when it would pop, and it took and the Platinum Trophy. I hated this trophy list with a passion, and honestly, it's all Techland's fault since they now have a track record of 2 games back-to-back with agonizing trophy lists. Well done. Honestly, round of applause to all you dirty fuck.